Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Class Zer0 Soldiers Podcast, Episode 5. I'm your host, Zer0.exe, but you can call me Zero. And as always, I'm joined by my buddy Soldier by Night. So how's it going, man? What's new with you?
Nothing much, just enjoying my evening. I had a little bit of wine, and I was pretty excited about all the news that we got this month regarding, well, I guess it's the future of what E3, I guess, is now. So we're just happy to have anything, and I'm excited to talk about some of those things with you today.
Yeah, it's a post-E3 world, and we're just all kind of living in it. And it's kind of a dated concept, the whole E3 thing of being in a physical location, especially after COVID with Zoom taking over the world, and Nintendo doing their thing for about, I want to say like almost 8 years or so now, just doing a Nintendo Direct where they just upload a video online and call it their E3. The model is kind of already there for everyone to follow, and everybody realized like, hey, why are we spending all this money to go to
Yeah.
some theater in Cali when we could just do it ourselves and save a bunch of money and still generate the marketing hype and announcements and whatnot.
Yeah, I really dig that. I think it was a good move on Nintendo to, spearhead that and look at everyone now. And I don't know. I just sometimes I think that they could be a bit more condensed. Like they do go a little farther than they should. Sometimes they feel a bit too like ad bolstered.
Summer Games Fest.
Yeah, where I'm just like, okay, let's get to the good stuff. I know it's a show, and people do still show up to some of those events. But yeah, I guess we can get right into it. But before we do, I guess, how are you, Zero?
I'm doing pretty good, man. With all the hype with Fire Emblem Three Hopes or Fire Emblem Warriors Three Hopes, I've been playing a lot of Three Houses lately. Actually, the original game.
Yeah,
I never did finish the second or third routes. I started and beat the Blue Lions, and then I started a Golden Deer route, but never finished it. So I've been kind of hardcore into that the last couple days. So that's pretty much been taking it over my life. But we'll get into that in a minute. I guess it's good to kind of just take these in order of when they happened in terms of each conference. And the first one was the early bird, June 2nd, and that would be Sony State of Play. Overall, I think it was a pretty solid conference. Like Sony's State of Plays are always very mixed reception for them, but I think they kind of hit this one out of the park. Anything stand out to you?
yeah. There's a couple things in there. I know No Man's Sky VR was one that I was really interested in, just because Sean Murray had touched on that back when No Man's Sky was really just a dream.
Yeah, the technology's there for it now.
It is, and they've like the game is totally different, and I say that from someone who reads up on all the updates and doesn't exactly play. I know it's not the greatest thing, but I've been waiting for VR to get to a certain point and for something like this to roll out. Before really just going back into it. I haven't played since, well, I picked it up every couple of years. I would just get back into it and play, right? It was just a game like that for me. But I don't know. That one was huge for me. I am more excited about that than it coming on Switch. Happy it's coming on Switch for all gamers that never got to play it on other consoles. But yeah, PSVR 2 and the No Man's Sky VR kind of going together. I'm really excited, and I will be on board once PSVR 2 releases. I don't know if they gave us a release date for that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't think they gave us a concrete date for it. I think they just gave us a release window. Yeah, it says maybe launching in 2023. So jury's still out on when that'll be. But I mean, it's needed an update. Those old headsets have a pretty low resolution, especially by today's standards. So probably not going to be cheap. Probably going to be the cost of a PS5, if anything's rumors are to go by. But I mean, considering what like the HTC Vive and like the Oculus have been able to do in terms of pushing VR forward, it should be a really awesome experience and one of those big projects that it's going to get the love it deserves to make sure it's good. And now that No Man's Sky itself is a more complete game, having that plus in VR, it's a good time to get back into it. I think they also announced a couple other VR things. It was very VR focused presentation.
Yeah.
We had Resident Evil Village is going to have a VR port. Horizon got a spin-off, Call of the Mountain. So they've
Yeah.
got a lot of projects.
They got some bigger names, and I think that's kind of where it was Half-Life
Yeah, Alex.
Alex, right?
Half-Life Alex.
I feel like, that was something that perked people's ears, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, what am I supposed to do? Get an expensive, gaming rig or VR headset and then play just this one game? But I think it's smart to get bigger studios making and maybe supporting, some of their titles and getting them to work on VR. But obviously it's about the hardware, right? If we don't have units in people's hands, they're not going to be buying the games, so there's less intention behind making and doing all this work for it. So hopefully this is just that kind of step in that direction.
It's a chicken and egg situation. You need to have the hardware for people to want to develop games for it. They need to see the install base before making that investment. But at the same time, games are what sell hardware. So I think this is a pretty good slate of games to release with to help push VR forward and get more people into VR. So that's pretty cool. They also had quite a few other announcements that were a bit standout. We finally got to see a little bit more of Final Fantasy 16 coming out summer of next year. Hopefully it's not another 15 situation where it's pushed back like 9 times.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, so hopefully Square Enix is their stuff together this time around.
There's a lot with Square Enix, they've got a lot going on right now with all the Final Fantasy 7, we've got the really cool stuff like the Crisis Core reunion that we're going to be getting at the end of the year, which is going to be, Crisis Core PSP. The only way that you can really play the game right now still is on the PSP. So being able to have that accessible even on the Switch, super cool.
Yeah, that's a big one. And I didn't even have the Final Fantasy VII presentation in my notes here, so I'm glad you brought it up because that was also probably one of the better presentations.
It was, and you just talking about Squeenix made me think about it, and I was like, oh yeah, then we also have the Ever Crisis thing, which I know you were really hyped for when you saw it, because it looks really like just unique and really fleshed out. And I know that there's some microtransactions involved too, because it's like isn't it a free to play, I believe? So there's going to be some stuff in there, I believe, that's related to that. But the core story should be pretty much everything leading up from the original games. Since it seems like they've proven to us by now, even though I have not completed all of FF7R, it is like a different timeline to the story for FF7.
Right, yeah, they're kind of making it a completely separate storyline here, which, it's not a bad way to go. It kind of reminds me of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Like, we know what happens to the 4 champions leading up to the events of the game, but then Age of Calamity took a different approach. I won't spoil it for you if you haven't beat it, but it kind of diverges the timeline a little bit, and events happen slightly differently than they did in the original game's lore. So I think that's cool. It's a good way to, re-explore that world without treading over tired ground. And speaking of Ever Crisis, so what really interests me about that is it looks like it's a more faithful remake to the original Final Fantasy VII, just kind of cleaned up a bit, because
right.
Those Lego block models did not age very well, and that's honestly one of the biggest reasons why I can't go back now and play it, just compared to what we have now. 8 and 9 visually aged a lot better
for sure
than 7 did. So it'll be nice to have a different way to play it. I don't know about the microtransactions and stuff. I know it is a mobile game. I don't know if there's word on whether it's going to be like free to play and with the traditional like gacha elements or
right.
microtransactions, or if they're going to do like an episodic thing where $10 is episode 1 and you can just play through it. I don't know if they've given us that much.
You buy the chapters, or maybe, I don't know, because there's a lot of story to go through, like the Turks beforehand, and it's going to apparently be like all of that stuff. So I wonder, like I saw there was gameplay of even playing as Zack, which was really interesting. So I'm like, how are they doing? Are they going all out and making this like a whole? And that might be, you might have hit it right there with because if they're saying it's like every Final Fantasy game that came out before that's in the 7 series in Ever Crisis. I don't know. That might actually be where the money part is. And if it is, then That's not too bad, but I know it's coming out on console, so who knows? But speaking of Squeenix and just turn-based games and whatnot, I imagine you're pretty hyped about the Eternite stuff, right? That looks pretty cool.
it it was very jarring to see that on screen after them talking about like Horizon and Resident Evil Village and a lot of their more realistic properties, and then they just switched to anime, and I'm like, whoa, system shock there. I thought it kind of looked like a Tales game at first, or maybe an Atlas game.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
actually a new studio making it, and it was obviously heavily inspired by Persona. So it could go one of two ways. It could be a really cool project that gets its inspiration from the original and making its own identity, or it could be a hilarious train wreck. But either way, I can't wait to see how that works out. So yeah, Eternites, that's something to look forward to. I don't know if they gave a date, but that was announced for PlayStation. We also got Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales coming to PC later this year.
Always happy about exclusives getting over to PC players.
Absolutely. And now that I've got a Steam Deck, like that's just music to my ears. It's just less reason for me to buy a PS5.
Yeah, and they can do a lot with the Steam Deck with added functionality and the kind of the special vibration that it has, the haptic feedback. I know there's some really cool stuff in the touch pads and things. So like,
oh yeah,
that's just another way to enhance the PC experience, but kind of giving it that console feel, which is awesome because we don't have like a portable, powerful PlayStation anymore. So
right.
like that's kind of our way to get that experience like we always dreamed of having. So leading from that, we had Last of Us Remastered announced, which the remastered, right? It's difficult for me to justify full hype, but at the same time, I almost feel like it was a smart way to market it as volume, or what is it, part one, because they called part two, and they didn't call part, like the original game, part one, because they didn't, I don't know if they even intended for there to be a sequel. So that was kind of smart of them, but there's still a lot of speculation on, whether the art direction is like really giving us more to enjoy from the game. But as long as, if there's more content, I'm about it. If it's really all just the same, that's fine too. I know the gameplay is going to be a big one. Gameplay from part 2 being included as part 1 is like a huge step up, just because you'll be able to craft a little bit better while you're on the go and playing the game, and rather than having to kind of like be a bit more stuck. But yeah, I'm excited for that. I just don't know how many times we're going to end up hearing about remastered stuff.
Yeah, I mean they're supposedly building it from the ground up, so I'm sure it's going to look great on a PS5. Yeah. But I know a lot of Last of Us fans are super excited about it, but I can't be bothered to really care about this one. It's just like, okay, I guess
You played the original, right?
I played part of the original. It's not for me, but it is a game that was available on PS4 as a remaster of the PS3, which is backwards compatible on the PS5. So I mean, you already have a way to play it. But if for some reason you never got it on the PS4, or like you played it on the PS3 when it launched and just haven't touched it since then and never bothered with the PS4 version, it might be a good time to try the remake, or I don't know if it's being considered a remake or a remaster, but the new one.
Yeah.
So good for them. Good for Last of Us fans. I'm happy for you guys. You guys are eating well. They're also getting, I think, a Netflix series or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Successful franchise. They're getting a lot of projects based on that. Horizon Zero Dawn's another successful franchise that's getting more stuff. Of course, we just had Forbidden West come out this year, which seems to be received very well by fans and critics. So another series that's getting a lot of good content. They're getting also a VR spinoff too, Call of the Mountain. Yeah, I mean, Sony fans don't have much to complain about right there. They're getting fed.
Yeah, and let's not talk about, we're gonna hit remakes. We've got Resident Evil 4 even right there, where
God.
it's like, okay, well, how many times have we had this game release? I mean, I have it on Switch, and that's where I played it for the first time, because I did play a little bit of GameCube, but
it's approaching Grand Theft Auto 5 territory at this point with some of these games.
Or Skyrim, yeah, it's all the same, where you're like, how many times now?
Right, now playing on your alarm clock, because why not?
Yeah, again, I just hope that they add a little bit, right? Like, I don't mind remakes. I really don't. I think that The thing that I care about most when it comes to remakes is just maybe a little bit of like, hey, can we see more of that scene?
Yeah.
Like now that you have the power, and it's not a restriction of the console. Like don't give me the restrictions of the console just brought into prettier light or something. Like take full advantage of the power that you have now and give me maybe a few scenes or like a little extra story or maybe change up the gameplay mechanics or something like that. But just take advantage of the console that it's on if it's being remade on it. But there's a difference between like a remake and a remaster, so I understand that part too.
Right, yeah, just something to justify a reason to play it again. And with Resident Evil 4, I don't know if this was right after that period where, the Resident Evil games had that weird control scheme where you had to hit left to rotate your
Oh
character
yeah.
and then up was to walk forward. What was 4 like after that, or was that still a thing in the original version of that
From what I
game?
recall, I mean, even when I played it on Switch, it was you were just it was pretty fixed up. Like you could move around.
Standard shooter
Yeah.
movement.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, that's one less gameplay change I guess they could make to that, because I know with the earlier Resident Evils, that's something that drove me nuts when I tried to play them, was that weird left is right is rotating your character versus strafing.
Kind of like the Tomb Raider movement, right? Where you're like,
Yeah.
why is this the controls for? If anything, it made it more horrific because of the controls. I think that kind of added to the horror aspect because you're like, I forgot how to play, or
The way I
like
want.
fighting with the actual game mechanic. But no, I think it's more in line with the rest of the remakes, right? Because they've remade 1 through 3,
Mm-hmm.
and now they've got 4.
Force turn.
Yeah, that's exciting stuff.
Well, we got to talk about some less exciting stuff now, though. I mean, that was all a Sony show. A lot of cool stuff. One last thing I want to touch on. We were talking about like Spider-Man going to PC, and it's always good when an exclusive gets a new audience on new platforms. Tunic was an Xbox exclusive that came to Game Pass. That one's getting ported to PS4 and PS5, so more people get to play that gem. But going to some less exciting stuff, we do got to talk about the Keighley Show, Summer Games Fest, which happened a week after the State of Play on June 9th. Really not a whole lot of highlights, except that there wasn't really any highlights. This was a show you were referencing earlier when you were talking about a lot of these shows are still just ridiculously long-winded and way too long.
Yeah, some of these show, when they go a bit hard on the marketing for it, you can really get a taste of it being just about getting you to buy something or shoving an advertisement in your face constantly. And I feel like that's when it kind of becomes draining, where you're like, why are people talking about games that maybe don't know much about the games? Like there's that aspect too, where you just kind of like lose respect, where you're like, okay, well, did you all do some research beforehand, or were you given a script? But yeah, no, that's why I always enjoy Nintendo stuff. But Summer Game Fest,
More like Summer Snooze Fest, am I right?
oh, I mean, you won't be snoozing if you buy energy drinks. I don't know. I don't.
Oh God, yeah, The Rock came on there to freaking literally just to advertise an energy drink. So I mean, going to the whole commercialism, and like all of Keighley's shows feel like that too. Like it's just such a corporate feel to it. Like the Game Awards, I mean, there's some cool announcements at the Game Awards, but that's like 3 minutes out of a 3-hour show, and it's just like you said, it's draining. It's like exhausting watching all of these, and
Yeah.
most of the announcements, or if you can even call them announcements, the world premiere is just slightly more information about stuff we already knew about, and there's very rarely brand new announcements.
Exactly. I couldn't stand it. If I was there in person, I wouldn't be able to do it. That's just why I don't see a value behind that. But I mean, going into some of the games that they came out with, I mean, we've got Goat Simulator 3.
One of the only actual announcements.
I mean, I know there's Gotham Knights is the Nightwing stuff is like new. I saw a little bit of that. That seemed kind of cool. I'm gonna need more to sell me on it. I'm still waiting on hearing something about I know this is more Marvel and that's DC, but I need more than just a little bit of gameplay or just a little bit of just a teaser and stuff. Like I need a little bit more.
And I think Nightwing was already shown as a playable character, so it's not
Right.
like they even like made a new announcement of a character too. So like, just a lot of these are just very underwhelming. Redfall showed up again here, but that was already shown in the State of Play as well. So like, Ravenlock, I think that's another one that was also shown in the State of Play. If it wasn't there, then it was in the Xbox and Bethesda showcase, which happened a little later. So I guess this was a a first announcement for them. So kudos to them. We had Arc 2 with Vin Diesel riding a T-Rex, because why not? Marvel's Midnight Suns, that XCOM dev-made tactical RPG game, which, again, it's something we've known about for a while. We got like slightly more info.
This is all old news, you know?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like 3-hour show for all this, it's not worth it. You know, it feels no different from seeing a bunch of commercials or reading through Game Informer magazine.
It feels exactly like that. You're right. When you're flipping through the magazine, you're like, where's the good stuff? And then there's just like no good stuff. Or you're like, oh wait, the good stuff is Goat Simulator 3. Never mind, I'm good. Yeah, I feel like those are the throwaway Game Informers that you have, where it has like maybe a cool cover or like that one cool article, and you're just like, okay, whatever. But to put that much money into it, I don't know. I mean, it just seems like a money thing, like you said, you know. Pretty well, you know, everything's capitalistic here, but I mean commercialistic in that regard. But new Saints Row with character customization out now, I'm just kidding. I'm over it.
Moving on, Devolver Direct, the real good show of the day on June 9th. It's a 20-minute show, and like always, it's just a goofy and vulgar show. If you've ever seen any of their previous ones, it's always over-the-top parody, like just making fun of marketing in general, which is very ironic that this happened right after the Summer Games Fest, because their big theme this year was making fun of countdowns, how it's just a bunch of padding and celebrity shows. Like, every time that there's like a Game Awards or Summer Games Fest, there's always that ridiculous pre-show where they tease that there's going to be announcements there too, and it's like 2 things with new characters in a game we already knew about, and the rest of it's just ads and celebrity pop-ins. So it's very funny that they did this right after Summer Games Fest, and it definitely feels intentional. But unlike Summer Games Fest, we did actually have some decent games to come out of this. Cult of the Lamb, which is indie game where it's like kind of like a simulator game where you're this lamb that's like a god or a demon, more like. So that's interesting. Plucky Squire was a big surprise. It kind of stole the show and was the big, good-looking game to come out of this. And I believe that's heading to every console, including Switch, later this year. So we'll get to see more of that. It's like a weird 2D game, and there's different like types of gameplay styles. He can actually jump out of the pages, and it's like a 3D action game as well. So I got to see more, but they definitely caught my attention with the little 1-minute teaser there.
Especially the style and the overall aesthetic that they were going for. It just seems kind of unique, and
yes,
I don't know, it seemed like it offered like some multiplayer, and I really want more couch co-op, like you know, It Takes Two had that, and I feel like everything's all online now, so it's really cool to, you know, see games where they incorporate that, and hopefully this is one of them. But I'm excited for this too.
Yeah, couch co-op's a dying art, so it does look like that could fill the void. Just a quick side note, this already came out a couple days ago, but the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game I have not yet played it. I definitely need to, but it's apparently really, really good. Everybody's kind of lauding it as one of the best beat-em-ups of all time, and it has 6-player local co-op. I just wanted to mention that because you were talking about it. It is on Game Pass, so if you have a Xbox or PC, you could try out some of that. But yeah, just want to throw that out there since you mentioned the couch co-op.
Oh, that's super neat. No, I'm down with that. I miss the co-op days of like Battletoads and things like that. So this is definitely the type of style of game that I would go for. I didn't know that there was up to 6 people that could play at once with that. Yeah, we need more of that. It sounds chaotic.
It is. They also talked about the online as being really good. It's very quick drop in, drop out. Like it's continuous and seamless. You don't have to like drop out, make a party and jump in. It's just like if someone wants to join your game, they can hop in with you in the middle of a stage. If they have to leave, they can pop out whenever they need to, and the action keeps flowing. So if you don't have that person in your home to play couch co-op with, you still get a really good online experience as well, where it's very easy to set up and accessible.
If both of them are really well done by what you've said, it sounds like they are. Like that's the dream, is having both as an option.
Yeah. And I haven't checked lately, but when it first came out, it had a Metacritic of like 87, which for an old school beat 'em up like that is kind of unheard of.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all about it. I'll give it a shot now that you've talked about it. You kind of sold me on it. It looked interesting, but I just didn't, I didn't hear much. I know you said it just came out, right?
Yeah, it came out, what was it, on the 16th? As of this recording, it's like a little less than 2 weeks ago. It was a day one Game Pass game, and I think it's like $25 if you wanted to just buy it. Yeah, it's sitting at 88 right now on Metacritic, so it's really good game. A lot of fan service for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans as well. A lot of obscure references in the game. So just based on, even from like the cartoons, they throw in some references there. So a lot of good fan service, a lot of good action, very easy to play co-op. So absolutely worth it, if nothing else, to try it out on Game Pass.
I didn't see much about Skate Story. I know that Skate Story is, one of the releases or announcements there, rather. But do you have much? Do you have any opinions on that? Like, did you see anything on that?
It's kind of similar to Plucky Squire in that the most interesting thing about it is like the art style and the visual direction of it.
Okay.
It's another one of those I got to see more of just to see what it's really about. But it looks like an interesting game.
Okay, cool. Because I know there's an audience for that, and I like the new remakes for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. I'm hoping they make 3 and 4.
Excellent games.
I think that would be great if they made 3 and 4. Who knows? They might. But I mean, they also ran really well. I mean, even on Switch, that's kind of what I meant by that, because they ran well on like the basic, like last gen and stuff. But I was surprised that it could run on the Switch as well as it did. And I know that they're trying to make it accessible for everybody. So hopefully, Skate's Story has a little bit of that too. You said you like the art style, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. If you mess up, he just shatters because he's like made of glass or something. It's different. It's one of those out there type of games that I can get behind.
Okay, I'm looking at it now. I feel bad because I didn't even look into this one and hadn't seen it. Yeah, it looks pretty surreal. I like the lighting and the colors used for it for sure. It kind of has like an 80s vibe to it in a way.
Yeah, there you go. It's like that. What is it, like the retro, the synth wave?
Yeah, yep, a little bit trippy, which is kind of smart for. It looks like it might even play like a Sayonara Wild Hearts, where you're kind of flowing through these stages, and maybe like there's just like obstacles along the way, or maybe there's more to it than that. Yeah. But very, very cool aesthetic for sure.
Definitely one of those games to keep an eye on. It's got my attention, and I just need to see some more gameplay and see what it's all about. But certainly, definitely on the radar.
And you had Angerfoot on there. I don't know what
that was. That was a weird game. Like, more than anything, it just looks so like over the top and goofy. It kind of gives me a Borderlands vibe almost to it. Just the way the presentation is. Like, the big mechanic is you just kicking things and then sending them flying, but it's also like a first person shooter at the same time. Like, it's different, and I think that's important in a sea of like third person action games and first person shooters that we seem to have gotten from like the State of Play and the more so in the Summer Games Fest. It's nice to see this variety. It's a shame that the Devolver Digital Direct doesn't get as much traction as it does, because they do publish a lot of really cool games, and they published Fall Guys. So if you played Fall Guys, that was a Devolver Digital published title, which is free to play now. So check it out if you haven't already. It's
very cool. Yeah, it's a fun game. I like that Angerfoot kind of. It gives me like Sunset Overdrive vibes, but then it also kind of gives me like, this is like a game that comes bundled with the console or something. Like
like a Red Steel from Wii era.
Yeah, you're like, oh, this
like
is
a proof of concept.
This is a demo? No, but it looks cool. Like, just being able to kick people around. I don't know. It seems like a fun game. Hopefully it's not too expensive or anything like that. But yeah, it seems like it could be just fun.
Or too simple.
Or too short. I guess it could be all those things.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's not. But I like that it's quirky, and it seems like it's in line with the Devolver stuff. Like, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely on brand for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the Devolver Direct. In terms of the presentations we've talked about so far, it was probably my second favorite behind the PlayStation one.
Mm-hmm.
But we do got to talk about what arguably was the big winner of not E3, which was June 12th, the Xbox and Bethesda showcase. And they came with the games. They said everything announced would be available within the next 12 months. And there was a lot of games. I believe they showed a grand total of like 53 games. and there was a lot of gameplay. It wasn't just cinematic trailers. They've listened to a lot of the criticisms. We've had Redfall showed up here again. This was also in a couple other presentations. Forza Motorsport looks amazing. We got a new Minecraft game, Minecraft Legends. It's almost like a real-time strategy, like Pikmin. And Diablo 4 got announced.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they really need to make it work. They need something. They need anything at this point, especially with just...
They need some good PR right now.
All the hate behind Immortal right now. But Diablo 4 does look great. I mean...
It looks good. Open world. It's their Elden Ring moment.
Yeah, and what's funny is that Diablo always had the potential for that, I feel.
I agree.
I know they're just now scratching that, but like it always felt like it could be more. And that's actually what made me always want more. And I ended up playing a different game. Like I definitely liked playing Diablo 3. I know that's more of like the casual one compared to, enthusiasts, but I hope this one is as accessible as 3 was, right, in that everybody can just hop in and kind of play, and maybe the multiplayer is solid, and you can go questing together, and it's just maybe I hope it saves Blizzard, and as much as not to get into Blizzard and all of that, because that's a whole other can, but I know that there's artistry there. It's like people sometimes forget that there's so many things going on and whatnot, but there are artists behind all this game development, and sure, they're putting food on the table, but at the same time, I can't imagine like mentally working for a company, even though you're able to kind of make your dream happen, so to speak, like has a positive effect on your life when everyone's just hating on everything the company does. So hopefully this is kind of like a way to just have some appreciation expressed as well, or help the consumers kind of appreciate something about the artists too, right? But yeah, I don't know. That's my piece on that.
Yeah, it's definitely tough to apply your craft when you have something as big as the Activision thing looming over your head as a company. Mm-hmm. The one thing I will say about that, not to get too off topic, is I think it's pretty much universally understood that it's not the developers that are the problem. This is definitely a leadership and executive level issue ingrained in the company. So a lot of the vitriol and a lot of the hate and a lot of the negativity, thankfully, as far as I've seen, hasn't really gone directly towards the developers, but there's a lot of people out there that will just boycott all of the company's games because of that, and that is when they do suffer. So hopefully it's a W for them. Diablo is one of those storied franchises that has a lot of passionate fans. As a casual observer, Diablo 4 looked good. They showed the Necromancer, a brand new class, as well as all the old returning classes coming back as well. Like I said, this could be their Elden Ring moment where it really breaks into the mainstream and has a big success for them. It looked cool. I'm happy that it looks as good as it does. We'll see how it actually ends up as a full game when it does come out. But, I mean, they need something positive after the Immortal situation. So, kudos to them for showing off what looks to be a very fun game.
100%. And then we've got quite a few other games here. I know Starfield was a big one as a reveal, but I know that was like at the very end of the event, which is... It was a weird one to top it off with. And I say weird only because it's similar to some games, so I feel like it has a lot to prove to everyone that it's worth their time. Hopefully it's not like a weird Andromeda moment with Mass Effect
or Fallout 76. It is a Bethesda game, so we have to keep that in the back of our mind. For better or worse, it is a Bethesda game. If you love Bethesda games, if Skyrim is your cup of tea and you've got it on all 19 consoles that it's been released for, keep an eye on it. The reaction to it seemed pretty mixed. They didn't really show anything that blew me away that said, whoa, I need to play this game. But I didn't see anything that turned me off to it either. I'm kind of neutral on it, but it did get its big reveal. They showed some gameplay, and we'll see how it looks once it's actually released. But yeah, Starfield fans that have been anticipating it since its big announcement in 2018 and finally got to see actual gameplay of it and what it's going to look like. So there you go.
Moving on. Silksong.
Speaking of games that got their big reveals, Silksong got its big reveal. Tell me about it, Soldier.
Yeah, I need to beat the original game before I can really be 100% hyped for this, but I don't play that many hard games when it comes to, just, I guess, unforgiving type of titles like Cuphead, or I kind of categorize Hollow Knight in that way. So Silksong looks like a lot of fun, but it'll probably take a while because I don't see myself skipping Hollow Knight to play Silksong, if that makes any sense.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those games you definitely want to play the first one before moving on to the next one. Yeah, but a series you don't have to do that with?
What's that?
Persona. You can play any of them. They're all independent stories, and to the surprise of absolutely everyone, Persona showed up at the Xbox showcase. So, yeah, we're getting Persona 3 portable, which kind of lends credence to the rumor that they're actually making a ground up remake for that game anyway. So, maybe they're just giving us this now and they'll have that later. We're getting Persona 4 Golden, which was already ported to PC, and everybody was like, okay, what about the rest of the consoles? So we're getting that. And of course, Persona 5 Royal was the big one. And this is probably the only announcement in this entire E3 cycle that actually made me pop off and like get excited, actually excited and scream and shout when I saw this on the screen. I was like, no way. I was in disbelief. I couldn't believe Persona showed up in the Xbox Direct. And all three games are day one Game Pass. And first one up's going to be Persona 5 Royal, I think in September. So that sealed it for me for being the best show, is the fact that Xbox had a ton of games, and of those games, Silksong and Persona were there, which nobody expected to be in the Xbox showcase to begin with. But kudos to them. They're still trying to make the Xbox work in Japan and cater to those audiences, even in the States, that are big on JRPGs. So, hey, I'm going to be all over those when they come out.
That's a big seller for Japan, a big way to get just more of that sweet, sweet cash. Because, they kind of said, screw the rules, we have money.
Yeah. When you're a $1 trillion company, or however much Microsoft is worth, they can afford to spend a little extra on their game division just to get that Game Pass subscription. And, they're knocking it out of the park. I'm a Game Pass subscriber, and it's one of the big reasons I ended up getting a Series X instead of a PlayStation, because it just seemed like a better way to go for me when I'm buying every game that I want to play on Switch, and having Game Pass to play all the big third-party ones is just a nice complement to that. But yeah, that was Xbox's showcase. A lot of really cool stuff and a lot of games with actual gameplay, no cinematic trailers. Good stuff to them. But now we can move on to Capcom. They had their showcase a day after, and they already tempered everyone's expectations that it was only going to be about games already announced. So, nobody was expecting a new Mega Man game or anything. We're not getting Breath of Fire here. But we got a little bit more info on things like Monster Hunter Rise, the Sunbreak expansion. They actually gave us a demo for that, which was surprising. So I got to play that. Really fun stuff. Can't wait for June 30th to hit so we can really dive into that. We also got Street Fighter 6, more info on that, confirmed to come in 2023. And the biggest news with Street Fighter 6 is that they confirmed it's going to be multiplat again. It's not going to be trapped on the PlayStation consoles. It'll be everywhere, including PC and Xbox. No word on Switch yet. I don't know if I expect it to be there.
There's enough changes this time around to really make Street Fighter 6 intriguing, and
They brought the swag back. It just looks like a better game.
It's time to win back all of those losses, because I feel like I can't count how many people who love Street Fighter just went back to the originals. Like, I have a buddy of mine who loves the collection so much that he bought me the collection, and he was like, yeah, we're playing this. And Third Strike is still one of my favorites, even one of my favorite fighting games. I love it. I hope that this is the redeemable game for Capcom with Street Fighter.
Very similar to Diablo 4 for Bethesda. This is going to earn back a lot of goodwill for them from the fan base. Just the art style looks better. It's just got a much cooler looking presentation. It's shaping up to be a really cool project. Another thing they announced is that in game, they're going to have like actual FGC, like fighting game community commentators talking in game as if you were like on a Twitch stream or at a tournament, which I thought was a really cool thing. So they hired two big, well-known commentators to record a bunch of stuff. So you'll get to hear that in game. It'll make it really feel like the tournament experience.
That's amazing. I feel like that's such a small thing that goes a long way. It's not a small thing to do all that like voiceover work, but just having that available, just immerses you. So hopefully that rocks and they kick it out of the park.
A lot of just really nice small touches here and there, and the little like the face taunts before the game where you can change your character's facial expressions.
Oh yeah.
Those are fun. I mean, they're adding a lot of cool stuff in there, and it looks like they're doing character exclusive taunts. Like there was one where they showed, I think it was Jamie and Ryu, and if you taunted with Jamie, he just did a little Hadouken, like taunting Ryu with the Hadouken voice. So if that becomes a thing, that's another just the attention to details looks like is there. So I'm happy. It's coming out in 2023 to PC, Xbox, PlayStation 4 and 5. So pretty much any current gen console that's not the Switch, you'll be able to play it on. And who knows, maybe in the Partner Direct tomorrow, they'll announce Street Fighter 6 for Switch as well.
Yeah.
And they also showed a little bit more of Exo Primal, which releases next year, and that's basically the not Dino Crisis game. It kind of looks like Dino Crisis and everything but name, but maybe they don't want to try and bank on nostalgia since it's so much more different than the original games that they didn't want to use the name. But it's definitely a wink and a nod towards the Dino Crisis franchise. So they showed a little more of that. I don't know how I feel about it yet, but cool. They teased a Dragon's Dogma announcement for the 10th anniversary, which ended up showing 3 days later on its actual anniversary, and basically it's getting a brand new remake. So Dragon's Dogma fans are eating good right now. And we also got some Resident Evil news here. Seems like every presentation had something Resident Evil in it. And we're getting third-person DLC for Resident Evil Village and a Shadows of Rose campaign, which was I can't remember his name, but the main character's daughter, I believe, who has like the supernatural powers. So you get to play as her.
Oh wow! Like, is it a separate story or like its own story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a separate campaign where you play as Rose, and I guess it's going to explore more of what's going on with her situation. I haven't played Village, so I don't know a lot of the lore, but I liken it to a Torn of the Golden Country situation where you get to play as characters that didn't get a lot of fleshing out in the main story. So I'm always down for that. I love it when they do exposition type side campaigns like this. So that's really cool. Looks like they're giving Resident Evil Village the love it deserves. So for everything I've seen, it's a really good game that's received well by the fan base. They're also getting a third-person mode. I mentioned that earlier, so people who prefer the old school style of Resident Evil will get to experience that. Of course, Resident Evil 4 remake was already announced, but they confirmed that it's going to release March 24th, 2023 for basically every next-gen console and PC. So the Xbox Series, PS5, and PC.
That's a lot. That was a big one. I remember, it is Capcom, and most of the focus was on the Resident Evil stuff. I know they talked more about, like you said, the ports and everything. And that's a big deal. I'm still actually kind of laughing at the not Dino Crisis thing you said earlier, because that just, I don't know. I thought about it, and I'm like, that was a pretty fun game. I played that one on the PlayStation.
I love Dino Crisis 2. That was one of my favorite PlayStation 1 games.
Yeah. I don't know. I just liked anything with dinosaurs as a kid, I guess. But yeah, Capcom really it had a balanced, for it being a Capcom thing. Like, I know it had a lot of Resident Evil stuff, but hopefully it's just one of those things where when you're adding content to something like RE Village, third person, maybe there's people that just didn't want to play it in first person. Maybe that's
exactly
too scary or whatever. Like, that's a great way to add content without it being redundant or
resource intensive to make.
Exactly. That's not a huge one, right? That if anything, if you ask me, that should be just like how the game was released. But at the same time, that might have not been the vision. That might not have been the artist vision. Maybe they wanted you to be in the character's shoes like that, but it is different than the other ones minus 7, because that's kind of where that came from. But yeah, I love free upgrades for last gen. We should always have that.
This was a pretty solid showcase for Capcom. They've been very underwhelming with a lot of their showcases, and even with the tempered expectations of them saying, oh, it's just stuff that we've already announced, there's no new announcements. There was a lot of information there and a lot of stuff they touched on. So, this probably a solid B minus C plus for me for Capcom. It was a decent show.
100%. I'm with you on that.
So, we got to talk about the one company that we haven't mentioned up to this point, except in passing, and that's Nintendo. Where is Nintendo? Well, they did have a Xenoblade 3 Direct on June 22nd. It wasn't a main Direct, so a lot of people were disappointed that we didn't get a regular Direct, but we did get the Xenoblade 3 one. I loved every minute of it. It was about a 20-minute presentation. More story stuff. They showed that you can change characters in combat, which has not been a feature in Xenoblade games before. You could always control different characters, but you couldn't do it in the middle of battle. So, like, there's going to be more depth to the combat now, just from that
Awesome.
alone. They also explained what the hero system is going to be like, which is their replacement for the blade system to add different play styles. So basically, the way it works is you have 6 main party members. They all each have their own, like, signature class that you can play as, and any of the 6 characters can be any of those 6 classes, and there's a 7th slot in your party which can be filled by any of these heroes who are kind of like side characters that you can swap in and out at any time for that 7th slot. But whenever you get a hero character in your party, you also unlock that character's class to use with any of your other 6 main characters. So kind of think of it like a Bravely Default, the Asterisk system, where like you get the job as soon as you beat the boss, except they're not necessarily bosses, or just even more distilled, like Final Fantasy V or Final Fantasy Tactics with the job system. So it's really in depth this time around, and it's a neat way to kind of handle the guest character situation. So that was really neat. The other big thing is they showed the DLC expansion pass. There's going to be one, just like there was for 2. And if it's anything like 2, we're in for some really good content for that $30. They did show a massive story expansion going to be due by the end of 2023, which, I mean, that's a lot of content. And the logo even had the Shulk's Minato and Aegis Blade. So basically confirmed Pyra and Shulk are coming back too. So we're getting our fan service from other games in the series. And I would expect to see like Cosmos as well.
Yeah, I mean, even harkening back to the classics, I wonder, did Xenoblade Chronicles 2 actually have something related to Shulk and maybe his blade or anything like that?
Yeah, so there's actually a little extra side story in Xenoblade 2's expansion pass, where if you go to the Land of Challenge, you can meet Shulk and Fiora, and if you complete their little side mission, they actually become blades for your party that you can equip on anyone. They also did that for Elma from Xenoblade Chronicles X. It's like the only only callback to Xenoblade Chronicles X that we've gotten in either game, so it was cool to have that. And Cosmos was in the base game, and we got Telos in the DLC as well. So there's a lot of fan service in 2, and I'm really happy to see that they're going to keep that moving forward. Probably going to see maybe a couple fan favorite blades show up either in the main story or DLC as heroes.
I love it.
So yeah, that was the Xenoblade Direct. That was Nintendo's big E3, apparently. They just showed off Xenoblade 3, which I'm fine with, but I know some people wanted more. And if they did want more, we did get an announcement a little less than a week later about a Nintendo Direct partner showcase, which, as of this time recording, is going to be airing in about 7 hours from now. So this is probably going to upload well after it's done, but we could still throw our predictions in there and see if we're right in real time.
Yay!
So just some background for you before you give me your predictions. It's about 20 minutes long. We don't know anything else about that except that it's a partner showcase. So basically don't expect anything Nintendo first party unless it's developed by a third party. So Metroid probably off the table here. Bayonetta, maybe. So what do you think, man? What are your thoughts on how Nintendo's handled this E3, and what are you hoping or expecting to see from the partner showcase?
It's probably going to be Astral Chain 2. It has to be.
Oh my god, that would be awesome.
I just think that it was just kind of one of those underrated games, unfortunately, and it didn't. It only had like one release of its title. You can get it digitally, I believe, but physical copies are pretty rare now. But I've been thinking about Astral Chain quite a lot. I beat it last year, and it left an impression. I enjoyed it a lot, and yeah, Platinum's great. No, seriously speaking, Bayonetta 3 though, I do hope we get a little bit more. That's my kind of like top guess.
It's about time, right?
It feels like it is. Like it's been in the oven for long enough. I know Metroid is also being worked, but that's more on the first party stuff.
And that's a different situation too. They had to
It
restart
is
that development entirely. I don't
from the
think
beginning.
that wouldn't happen with Bayo because it's platinum, right? So
No,
you have to feel
yeah,
like that's going to come sooner.
it has to. I mean, I know they have to mention also. I guess my other prediction is Persona. So like,
Yes. I will lose my mind if we don't get Persona.
I could see them doing like P5R, doing P4G, getting the P3P, just like Xbox had their treatment, but obviously they're going to have it on Game Pass day one, but it's going to be like phased out or whatever. But I imagine these will be like kind of not full price, but it'll be like a $20 for this game or $30, or you get them all for like 60 or something like that. But
You're giving too much credit. It's going to be 60 for
you think it's
Persona
going to be
5
60?
Royal. It's going to be 30 for Persona 4 Golden and 30. Come on, man. That Switch tax is real.
You're not wrong. You're
Which
not
I'm okay
wrong.
with. As long as we get them, I'll pay that. I will pay them to get these games because I've been wanting them for years on the Switch. But I will riot if they're not in this damn Direct tomorrow.
Hey, if they are coming to Switch, I mean, I'll be able to enjoy them portably like I have with, P4G, for instance, and P3P. And
Right.
I think back in the day,
You get the original experience again.
yeah, I mean, back in the day, I liked playing my Vita with remote play with Persona 5 and my PlayStation 4, and I would play that game like that on my bed in my room, and I'd be super happy because it worked so good, and it just felt natural. I'm like, man, we need to have Persona on portable again, and hopefully
Yes.
we get that released as an announcement tomorrow.
It's a lot like Monster Hunter, where it just feels right in a portable form
Mm-hmm.
factor. So getting 5 finally ported over, as well as 3 and 4, obviously those originated as portable game. Well, not 3, that came out on PS2, but then they made portable on PSP. And of
Right.
course, 4 Golden. I don't think they made 4 Golden on the PS2, right? That was only on
No,
Vita.
it was a Vita exclusive.
Right. So I mean the definitive version of the game was on the portable. So something's got to give, man. I'm hoping we get it tomorrow. In all seriousness, if we don't, at least it's coming to Game Pass, so I can play it on my Steam Deck and still get it portably that way. But
Yeah.
it sure would be nice just to pop in a cartridge on Switch and be able to play it there. It feels so right for the console. We talked about this a little bit before the show too. Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal specifically is running on the same engine that Catherine Full Body is already
Right.
running on the Switch on, and it runs well. So it's an updated PS3 game. There's the power thing is not a real excuse. So it's just a matter of whether or not they want to do it. I mean, it's possible. There's nobody saying that it's cannot run on Switch with any shred of credibility, but it's Atlas makes Atlas decisions. So I would be equally surprised by the Persona games not being in the Direct as I would be by them being in the Direct. So we'll see, man. I'm hoping. That's my only hope and expectation. Give me Persona.
Yeah. Speaking of games that like you can't imagine being a difficulty to get running on Switch, what if they just came out and said, "Hey, Kingdom Hearts, but the
Oh my
game."
god. Don't get me started, dude. I still can't believe that. That felt like an Atlas type decision from Square Enix, if we're being real. Like
Yeah.
3 is on Unreal Engine, which is on Switch and scales well. They could make it run, even if it's not like the prettiest game in the world. 3 would run 540, 720, docked and handheld or whatever, but it could run feasibly well. But if you wanted to say, okay, we opted for a cloud version to give you the best looking version on the Switch, I'd be like, it's kind of lame, but okay, at least they're getting it. But there's no reason not to have the PlayStation 2 collections that were remastered on PlayStation 3 to not be on the Switch. It doesn't make sense to me, man.
Yep, it's just lazy.
That's all it is.
And I don't even care if it's a lack of resource, and I know they have a lot going on, like we discussed earlier. But hey, what are your predictions, Zero?
Oh man, I'm gonna go with a bit of a dark horse candidate tomorrow. I'm gonna go ahead and say that we're gonna get Etrian Odyssey announced tomorrow. We haven't had an Etrian Odyssey game since what was it, 3's remake on the 3DS. So maybe we get that. Maybe we get something like Call of Duty, which has not had any presence on Switch whatsoever, but they've made portable versions in the past with the DS games, and they even had the Wii U ports that were fantastic ports of things like Black Ops 2 and Call of Duty Ghosts. I loved them on my Wii U. So it's been a while. Feels like it could be time. Maybe we'll get a Madden on Nintendo Switch. Madden NFL. Haven't had a Madden game on Nintendo console since, pretty sure the 3DS one was the last time, and that was like 2013, and then we never saw Madden on Nintendo again. So maybe we'll get some of those, weird Western third-party games announced for Switch, because
What if it's the NFL Blitz for N64 for the Switch Online?
honestly, I would take that. That would be so dope. That game was so ridiculous, man. I would take that. Let's go. Put it on the 64 app.
It was like having when you're playing like the Burnout games, and it's like exciting. It kind of looks good, but you're like you're messing around, or even like the NBA Street games where it's not as serious, and
it's more video gamey than it is simulation.
It's fun. You're going in there, you're having a good time. It's like more party friendly, and I love that you can play Switch Online. N64 games online, like Mario Kart and stuff, I think that's awesome that you can do that. So why not just, it'd be a cool one. Hopefully some of yours come true. Call of Duty stuff. I remember the Wii U one being a fan favorite too, just for the added functionality. And I mean, Black Ops 2 is just like an all-time favorite.
Ooh, I got one for you.
What do you got?
What if we get the pixel remasters of the old games?
Ooh. Oh, you mean the ones that were made like the mobile?
Mobile and PC only, where they didn't actually have like actual ports.
Ah, okay, I got you. Yeah, no, that would be amazing. You mean like all of the up until 6 or so?
Yeah, like 1 through 6.
Oh man, I would play all of them. I've only played one. I know that sounds terrible, but I've only played one, some of 4, and a little bit of 6. But I have not played 6 all the way, and that's the one I really want to play. So I'd probably play that one first.
I played 3 to death on the Nintendo DS, and
I heard that was really good though on the DS,
because that was like the first time they really went for like a 3D remake, and it was so crazy good looking at the time. And we had never played 3. That's not one that ever released in North America before, so it was really fun to play through that. I love the DS port. The combat was molasses slow sometimes with the animations, but that's something these pixel remasters could improve upon. I don't know all the extra features that they included, but I think a fast forward feature is one of those things.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Like, I'll probably play Final Fantasy 12 at some point just because it has some of those quality of life.
Fantastic game.
Yeah, a friend of ours really loves that game. I think it's amazing. I love airship stuff. Never played Skies of Arcadia, and I really want to one day.
Hey,
that would be really cool.
That'd be an interesting announcement.
Yeah, like who made that one? I know it was like a Sega game originally.
Yeah, it was Sega. I don't know who it was developed by, but it was a Dreamcast game originally, and then it came to GameCube.
Yeah, it did come to GameCube as well. I remember having a copy and feeling like such a wimp selling that. I think I sold that. I sold like Path of Radiance.
My God, those are all worth hundreds now.
I know. And I sold, I think I still got a good amount. Like, I think I got like, at the time, right? Like, at the time, I got like 80 to 100 per. I had like an original Animal Crossing GameCube copy, complete in box with the GameCube memory card. With like one of the stickers on there.
Bro, stop talking. You're killing me.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, I know. How do you think this is? By the way, these are the thoughts that keep me up at night. So now you can have them. But yeah, I you've got some good guesses for tomorrow. I wonder what we'll get. I don't imagine us getting any Pokemon news just because it's more like you said, the third party stuff.
We'll get a dedicated Pokemon Direct probably sometime before it comes out.
I'm kind of dying for it just because we're getting closer to the middle, past the middle half now of the year, and I'm hoping that I'm stoked because Arceus, was just such a hit. I would replay it again. Honestly, I might go back in and replay it before the new Pokemon Violet and Scarlet come out.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I need to see just a little bit more. Just show me something to drive me over the edge. I'm already overly positive on it, but just I need to see something like, being able to catch Pokemon in the overworld without initiating a battle.
I have an idea because I know that both of these legendaries, like one's like a more ancient legendary and one's a more like modern and futuristic kind of legendary. It would be dope if the DLC for those games. This would make me buy both of the versions. What I'm about to tell you.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and play through them all. So imagine if both of the DLCs for the versions they differed because if you had Scarlet and that was the one where it was more ancient, you go back, you go back in time, or maybe not back in time. Maybe there's like something because maybe you get the ancient Pokemon in that game, so maybe the DLC helps you go to you jump into the future, and then maybe in Violet. Because that's how you get the legendary from the other game in that game with the DLC. Maybe that's how you can complete that part of your Pokedex, and you make it part of like a DLC story where you go into the future, and it's like the world, but it's in a different time period or something like that. That would be really cool. And then with like Violet, you would go back to the past, and you would go get the ancient legendary from Scarlet or something. I don't know. That's how I would spin it to like. Because I know they like to collect, and I get it, but I mean, like when they released the DLCs and they had only just small differences, like with, I already forgot his name, the little fighting like cub character.
I think it's
Cubfu, right? Cubfu.
Yeah, I know Urshifu is the evolved one.
There was not that many differences for it to feel like, oh well. I want to have the other version so I can collect them all or whatever. It was I don't know. I know Nintendo's about the monies, so I'm just saying make it about monies, but make it fun, make it cool. I like the legendaries, like where they're going with it.
A Black City and White Forest situation.
Exactly, but like
I get
cooler.
you. I will say though, I do appreciate them handling Urshifu the way they did, where regardless of which version you had, you could choose either the water one or the dark one. Yeah. So like you weren't locked into a specific typing based on your version. So I'm glad they did that. We're getting more and more to the point where we don't need two versions of games, and I think Legends Arceus kind of proved that. So it's still kind of annoying that there is two versions of the game, but at least make them different enough to warrant picking one over the other, or maybe in your case, a reason to get both of the games. So if they had separate DLC campaigns, that would be really cool. I don't expect that to happen, honestly, but give me some more post-game, give me the overworld catching, and here's one, give me shinies viewable in the overworld. That's another thing I don't want them to take away from Legends. And Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee had that as well, so where you could see if a Pokemon was shiny in the overworld.
Oh, yeah, I think that was... Well, Arceus had that, obviously, but that's a little different.
Yes.
But, yeah, hopefully we get that, because I love that feature. It's
amazing.
They make shiny Pokemon easier and easier with each version. I mean, I couldn't believe that I played the game and got like 7 or 8 shinies by not trying.
Yeah, it's not even like they made them easier to get, because they didn't change the actual spawn rates of shinies outside of like the mass outbreaks, which of course were stupid easy.
Yeah.
But it's just the fact that because you can see them in the overworld, you're getting more rolls of the dice because you're seeing them just as you're traveling through the world. Whereas if it was Sword and Shield, for example, you're not going to go and battle every single Pokemon to check if it's shiny. That's just too tedious. Nobody's got that kind of time. So just having the convenience of quick checking them right there on the map and knowing for sure whether or not it's worth your time to go battle it if you're not like trying to train or something, it makes them easier to get just by simply being easier to spot without checking every single one. So Sword and Shield didn't have that, but both Let's Go Pikachu and Legends Arceus did. So I'm really hoping they carry that over and say, okay, let's go all in on the Pokemon in the overworld thing.
Yeah, you're right. That little identifier, like the sparkle sound.
Mm-hmm. And just the color, like you couldn't see the color of the Pokemon in Sword and Shield regardless. Not even just the little sparkle effect. You couldn't see if it was shiny until you got into the battle, which was not only just inconvenient, but it was also immersion breaking. You don't feel like you're exploring the world because you're going into a battle with a completely different...
It's a separate place.
Exactly.
Yeah, and to think that a game like the 4th gen games, Diamond and Pearl, having the the little tracker kind of thing with the, where you could see like a certain grass, the chaining that they had. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But the chaining that they had where you could see a grass ending up shaking and you knew it could be shiny, like that was even just a visual indicator and a way to kind of work your way toward a shiny, but we're heading in the right direction with the Pokemon Company there. Did you want to wrap this one up with favorite E3 moment?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's long live E3, rest in peace E3. We will never get another E3 again, but if I'm looking back at some of my favorite moments, good or bad, infamous or famous, I'll have to go with the E3 2018 for Nintendo. That's when they showed the Everyone Is Here trailer for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And I don't think there's a single character announcement that was more hype than that. Just knowing for the first time in Smash history, you didn't have to worry about your favorite character potentially not coming back, since they were all coming back, including ones that weren't in the previous version. So that was an amazing trailer. Just super well done. They slowly build up to it and showing Snake as the big reveal of Everyone Is Here. And super cool.
Yeah.
A lot of good Smash announcements outside of E3, which makes it hard to pick, like Sephiroth, which was ridiculously hype, but I mean, it wasn't at E3.
Yeah, you can't top some of those. I mean, I know the Joker reveal was a big one.
Joker and Sephiroth, both of the Game Awards reveals were just super hype.
They were Game Awards. I think they were a year apart, even.
I think 2020 for Sephiroth, because he was Fighter Pass 2. So they were 2 years apart, actually.
Oh, maybe you're right. You know what? Anything after 2019 is kind of a blur.
Yeah, it all blends together.
Well, that's a pretty good pick. I believe mine, I don't know. I've always been a sucker for Reggie. He was just a great president. He was like having a president for a company who felt like a dad. He just felt like a cool dad character. And I think when he came on stage on, I think it was E3 2004.
Yep.
I might be wrong.
Nope, that was the one.
Yeah, and it was awesome. He came up on there. He had his, stage presence. It was like his first intro. Ah, man, like you could just anywhere he was walking, he had purpose, and when he spoke, I loved it. I'll never forget my name's Reggie. I'm about kicking ass. I'm about taking names, and we're about making games. And he had the DS when he announced that, and he came on stage, and that was it. Like that. That was his intro, and he was timeless forever. My body is Reggie became a huge meme, and I love that meme. And yeah, it's amazing to see how much he impacted, the Nintendo of the West. And I think that it was important to have that because it helps kind of bridge the East and the West, because we were so different in the 80s and 90s. I mean. That's why so many games didn't come over here, and so many games got censored and changed, and I know some still do, but I feel like with someone like Reggie at the helm, we got to break some of those walls down because people just opened up, just like he was willing to, having execs kind of understand people and be people goes a long way for a company. So I feel like that's that was my favorite memory, and yeah, long live Reggie.
Yeah, that was a big conference. If I'm not mistaken, that's also the one where they showed Twilight Princess, isn't it? 2004?
That's correct. The long-awaited actual sequel to Ocarina of Time, like everybody wanted to, unlike Wind Waker.
Yeah. It's the trailer that brought a bunch of adult men to tears seeing the reveal for Twilight Princess. We finally got the link from the tech demo.
Oh yeah, with this, wasn't there? It was a Goma in that one.
The tech demo had Goma.
We'll never see that, but
no. But it was still cool to see something similar to it in the same relatively close art style. So that's a good pick, man. I mean, 2004 was a pretty legendary year for Nintendo, one of their best conferences. So I mean, that's not a bad pick. They're kicking some butt right now with the Nintendo Switch. Maybe next E3/not E3, we'll get an announcement of a brand new Nintendo Switch. But yeah, I mean, overall, even though E3 is dead, it lives on in spirit with all these individual conferences. And while I won't call this like the strongest year for everybody's presentation, there was still a lot of really cool stuff that got announced. And that concludes E3 season.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you, everyone, for listening, for joining me to talk video games, Zero. Appreciate you. Also, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Kraken Skulls Gaming, and hit the notification bell to be notified when a new episode drops. Also, feel free to drop a like, dislike, or provide any feedback or opinions you might have in the comments below. Take care, everyone, and happy gaming.
Till next time.